We have this urban legend in my city called the Wrong Way Man. Supposedly, you might see him standing on the side of the road when you're driving. Some say it's always when you're on your way home. I've seen pictures of the Wrong Way Man. They circulate among us by text message. They circulate among students, workers, friends, and family here. Oddly, I've never seen any of those photos posted online. I'm not sure if it's because of fear, because those who've taken the pictures want to perpetuate the mystique of our local urban legend, or because of something else. I was pretty sure those pictures had been a hoax, just someone dressed up as the Wrong Way Man. Maybe it was the same person every time. As far as what the Wrong Way Man looks like, he wears his tattered clothing backwards, usually a flannel shirt and jeans. His painted smiling face looks eerily realistic until he turns to the side and you can see it's a smooth surface. It seems that he shaves his hair off, paints a face over the back of his head, and puts a shoulder-length wig that covers up his real face. Those who have met who claim to have spotted the Wrong Way Man say they waited a week before driving home, staying over at a friend's house or a hotel and not even bothering to go home to pack a suitcase. I've also heard, though, that you need to wait a month. The common consensus seems to be, if you see him while driving home, don't finish the drive home. Turn around and go somewhere else and wait for at least a week. I thought it was a bunch of nonsense until my date and I saw the Wrong Way Man when we were going back to my house from the movies. It was Katie who spotted him. "Slow down," she said. "I think I see that Wrong Way Man you told me about." Katie had only lived in my city for half a year, so one of the things I told her on my quest to share with her as many interesting things as I could had been a local urban legend about the Wrong Way Man. Was it a coincidence that we had just been talking about him a few days before? I'd never seen someone dressed as the Wrong Way Man in person. Pictures, sure, but never in person. My foot was shaking as I eased up on the gas. It was dark, nearing midnight dark, and there were either no streetlights or they were off. My car's headlights lit him up. On the other side of the road, he was facing us. Actually, he had his back to us. That painted face was facing us. The jeans and flannel shirt and wig were all turned our way as well. His arms and legs looked wrong. They were shoved down in his clothing the opposite way. I wanted to be amused, but I was alarmed. When we got to be about 10 feet away in my car, he turned his painted head towards us. Those painted eyes, realistic but forever held too wide, seemed to be staring right into mine. As we drove by, I waved to him and laughed to try ease some of the tension. He did not wave back. I looked at Katie. She was waving too, but she wasn't laughing. I glanced back in time to see the slick side of the person's shaved, painted head, and the optical illusion of a real face being there was shattered. Shattered, but somehow worse for us. Also, when I peered into the rearview mirror as we increased our distance, I thought I saw something glinting beneath the shoulder-length wig he wore. Then, he was gone, lost to the darkness. I picked up speed. He hadn't been walking, but somehow I was worried he would come after us too quickly. "So, what do we do now?" Katie said. "We can't go to your home or mine." I glanced at her, and soon we both started laughing. "Well," I said, "after midnight we'll be able to tell everyone around that we saw the Wrong Way Man and went immediately home." "I wonder who's pretending to be the Wrong Way Man," Katie said. "I wonder why they were doing it. Do you think we should turn back around and try to talk to them?" "I'd rather we didn't," I said. "They could be dangerous, but I'm sure it's just someone looking to keep the urban legend alive." "It's your car," Katie said, "but if it was mine..." "All right," I said. "We'll turn back around. My grandpa used to say, if you're in doubt which turn to make, you can always make a U-turn until you figure things out. He used that as a metaphor in life." But as I did my U-turn, My heart was thrashing in my chest. We drove down the entirety of that dark street without seeing that person again. It was a couple of miles long in that direction, so there was no way they could have walked or run the distance so quickly. Katie and I decided that the person dressed as the wrong way man must have left the shoulder of the road for the surrounding woods. The idea of them hiding the woods as we drove by again made me feel like I had spiders crawling over my flesh. We did another U-turn, and during that whole time I kept glancing around in case that person jumped at us from out of nowhere. But soon, we were heading back in the direction of my house with no second look at the wrong way man. Katie and I tried to laugh it out, and we tried talking about other things, but both of us were pretty scared. We couldn't stop chatting about everything and nothing or glancing out the windows or into our side mirrors. We turned into my subdivision, then we turned onto my street, and everything changed. As soon as we turned onto my street, we started to go backwards instead of forwards. "Did you put it in reverse?" Katie said. Her hand was gripping my arm. It was as cold as ice. I stopped the car. Both of us were looking down. The car was in drive. I took my foot off the brake and put it onto the gas pedal again. The houses, familiar houses I saw every day when coming home, were moving away from us. "Maybe something's wrong with my car," I said. But when I tried driving forward again, I looked to the side and then in the rearview mirror. We were not moving. Not according to those views. In front of us, the houses receded every time I put my foot on the gas, but from the side and rear, it appeared that we were standing still. On my street, everything was well lit. There were tons of street lights, so we couldn't argue it away as if it had anything to do with limited visibility. "Let's get out of here," Katie said. Her voice was almost a whisper. "Yeah," I said, in a similar way. "But how are we going to leave?" "Put it in reverse." When I put my car in reverse and tried that, we actually moved forward. But to the side and rear, once again, we seemed to have not moved, like we were caught just past the entrance to my neighborhood. It was when Katie and I stopped the car and were debating getting out, but we spotted someone coming towards us on the sidewalk. They were approaching us from the front of the vehicle, so I'm not sure how accurate the distance was. It seemed like they were already about 20 feet away. I don't know why it took me so long to realize this. Maybe it was because I didn't want to, but I recognized my neighbor by the back of his head and by his body shape, which was somewhat atypical. I'd seen him often stooped, working in his garden while I was driving by. He was walking backwards towards us. When he got closer, he stopped. Then he began shouting, "Emple, Emple," over and over again, standing stock still, his back to us. Only later I would realize he'd been saying "help me" in reverse. I rolled down the window. "Mr. Nelson," I said, "what's the matter?" He stopped shouting. Now that my window was down, I could hear his body creak and snap. Blood poured out fissures as the joints of his arms and legs changed drastically. When Mr. Nelson's head twisted all the way around towards us, I was sure I saw the light go out of his eyes. Then, whatever had taken over Mr. Nelson made a step forward with a new architecture of his body. Katie and I both began to scream at the first step. I rolled up the window as Mr. Nelson looked around on strange, inhuman legs. His kneecaps and elbows had become stretched and exaggerated from being reversed. I put my foot on the gas, with the car still in reverse, and through the front windows we seemed to be careening forward. Even though a glance out of the sides or rear view showed us to still be stationary, we slammed into Mr. Nelson. Blood slashed across the windscreen. The car rose and fell as we went over his body. To the sides and rear, there was no indication of the car rising and falling. I did not see a lump appear behind us. I kept my foot on the gas, still going forward in reverse. I saw a window of a neighbour's house shatter. A couple I barely recognised crawled out like baby spiders out of eggs, leaking blood and more blood as they scraped themselves against the shards of the window frame. I don't think it was that they didn't know how to open windows. When the wife paused in the window, she smiled. She intentionally rubbed her scalp against a particularly sharp-looking piece of glass. Meat and blood came away. I think I could see the white of her skull. By then, her husband was already on the ground, running towards us. I sped forward. They and their house vanished in the sides of the rear of the vehicle, which were, again, still stuck near the street entrance. More people were coming out of their homes. They came out all twisted and broken, damaging themselves further as they exited. They ran towards us on backwards legs, churning their backwards arms. Everything about them was the wrong way. Before long, I found myself slamming on the brakes. "Keep going," Katie yelled. "They're going to catch up with us." Ahead, I saw my own driveway. Someone that looked like me was talking to another person with a painted face. The painted face nodded. Up and down it nodded, like a real face would do. Then, when I saw the wig shuffle and move seemingly on its own, I realized that the true face under that wig was talking, moving its lips, breathing. The wrong way man was talking to me, or someone who looked like me. At the same time, Katie was reaching over me, trying desperately to put her foot on the gas. A couple of twisted pieces of bone and meat collided with the windshield. Two faces with bunched up folds of necks leered at me out of glazed eyes. These were faces I should have recognized. Their twisted arms continued to beat at the window, even though their eyes told me that no one was home. A spider's web of cracks spread across the windshield. Its grooves caught blood. I slammed my foot on the gas while helping to steady Kate back into her seat. We flung those two off, and right after, we ran over an entire family in quick succession. I didn't have time to feel guilty. These were not my neighbours. These were not my neighbours. These were not... Katie and I both began to change. I heard some of my bones break. I felt it a moment later, like the reverse of lightning before thunder. Katie and I started screaming, almost in unison, and about in the same tune. It was like a choir of pain and fear and pain had risen up with us as instruments. "Keep your head back," I yelled as I strove to keep my head pinned against my seat. "Don't let it twist around. No matter what happens to the rest of our bodies, we can't let it kill us." "I know," Katie said. "Just get this car out of here. Make a U-turn or something." Make a U-turn, I thought. What was it my grandpa said about life, and how if you don't know what to do, you could always make a U-turn? Still in reverse, yet still going forward, I wheeled the car screeching around. I didn't glance out the sides or rear. I gunned it, heading back towards where we had come. The wrong way man waited. He waited for me at the juncture of my driveway and the street. His painted mouth grinned forever. His painted eyes were too wide and incapable of blinking. We passed him and drove out of the neighbourhood. Katie and I weren't out of the woods though. I was able to get us to a nearby gas station before my legs and arms, which were partway reversed and leaking blood, completely gave out. We crawled out of the vehicle and onto the cold, hard concrete of the gas station. I blacked out almost at once, but Katie tells me she retained consciousness until the ambulance arrived. I don't envy her. We spent months in the hospital with broken bones and torn ligaments and muscle. I think the only thing that had saved us from permanent damage might have been the seat of our vehicles resisting our changes. We told the doctors we'd been in a car accident. They shook their heads at us and kept asking questions. I did go back home eventually. We both did. The reason I went home was because one of my neighbours that we had run over with my car came to the hospital to visit me. They seemed completely fine, as if nothing had happened, and the wrong way man had never changed them. But damage was done to my vehicle, and to Katie and me, both physically and psychologically. And while our bodies are on the mend, I don't think we'll ever be the same. I feel the wrong way inside. I know a game. It's a fun game, yes it is. But I need a playing buddy for it. Will you be my buddy? My friend? That sounds nice. A friend. My game is awesome in every way imaginable, and if we win, we can get fortunes you can't even imagine in your wildest dreams. Are you in? Yes, of course you are. Everyone who's heard about it is in. The game even has a fun name. The Box Game. Lovely, right? And it's in your own house, so you won't even have to travel. It's kind of a mix-up of mostly hide and seek and tag. I already found a seeker, so don't worry my friend, you will be on my team. Great, right? You need a few things before you start the game. You will need a cardboard box for every room in your house. The size doesn't matter, but some will need different colours. So I brought you some paint. It's in the attic with some boxes. I saw you already have enough, so don't worry about that. You need to paint one blue, one red, one green and one white. You don't need to paint the other boxes. You also need a candle, preferably red, but black is also good enough. Never a white candle, cause then I won't be able to play with you, and the seeker wins. You don't want him to win. Trust me. You also need to do some things before the game. This is nothing major, just a few things you'll have to prepare so we can start smoothly. I even made a list of them for you. Number 1. This is the most important thing. Consider it a rule even. So please, listen to me. You cannot eat anything with salt in it from the moment you have read this letter. If you do, he wins, even if the game hasn't started yet, and he will come collect his price. Number 2. Now, onto the fun stuff. I always love this part. You first have to paint the boxes. Like I said, one needs to be blue, one red, one green and one white. I also brought you some black paint. You can doodle on them with that, but not too much. They need to mostly remain the colour you painted them. You can't doodle on the boxes that you haven't painted. Those are mine, and I would like to also decorate mine myself. Number 3. Every room needs a box in it, but you can't place them randomly. The blue box needs to be in your bedroom, the red box in your kitchen, the green box in your living room, and the white box in your bathroom. You can place the other boxes randomly in the other rooms, but be sure to place one in each room, even your storage room, attic, basement, and even your garden. Otherwise, it counts as cheating. Number 4. Last but not least, you have to sign this paper with a drop of your blood. I'll help remind you of this if you haven't done it before 11 AM. Well, now you're all set to start the game. It's going to be really exciting, but don't worry. As long as you don't forget to take a box of matches with you and light your candle before the game begins, we'll be fine. There are a few rules for during the game too, so make sure you remember them tonight, cause that's when the game starts. They are really important. You surely don't want to break any. You do not want to be a cheater. Number 1. Be ready at 11:30 PM. All of the lights have to be turned off and the boxes have to be in the rooms. I know, the game starts at midnight and ends at 6 AM, but the seeker likes to arrive early, so I'm warning you in advance. Otherwise, he follows the rules to the letter, so you have nothing to worry about. Number 2. Keep a box of matches on you and light the candle at exactly 11:30 PM. The candle has to be on for the whole game. Number 3. The candle will glow really bright for a moment when he arrives, and you will hear the sound of bells. That is when the game has started. Number 4. At this same moment, the boxes will have moved. Don't worry, this is normal, but they do have their own rules. I'll come back to that in a moment. Number 5. Now, Rule 5, 6 and 13 will be the most important rules for the night. First of all, when the boxes have rearranged themselves, you will have to start moving from room to room. I will follow you and help, but you are ultimately the one who chooses which room we will go. The order is completely up to you, and you may even choose a room twice if you want, but you will have to have been in all rooms and your garden before 6 AM. Number 6. Once you're in a room, you have to stay in there for 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the box. Cardboard boxes have assignments in them, which you'll have to complete in the given time. Those, however, are the easy ones. I'll come back to what you have to do with the coloured boxes later. Number 7. The Seeker can't get you while you're in a room within the given time limit, but when your time is up, he can come get us. He can also come get us while we're in the hallways. Number 8. This is not so much a rule as it is a helpful note. The boxes change rooms every time you leave a room. You could get only cardboard boxes the whole game. You cannot, however, get the same coloured box more than twice. You will also at least encounter coloured boxes 2 times, and at max encounter them 6 times. Number 9. You cannot go out to your house or garden. You cannot leave the game until it is over. Number 10. Now you will surely have questions about the coloured boxes. I'll start with the green one, because that's the easiest box. This one is about your family, friends and colleagues. Nothing too close or personal. It'll ask you a would you rather question, and you will have to choose. Whichever you choose will happen, so don't make hasty decisions. Number 11. The red one is slightly trickier. It'll ask you a dare, which is different for every room. It will go against your heart's choice, but if you don't follow it, you'll be stuck in the room until he gets you. Number 12. The blue box is really vague. You will get a question about dreams, work, love. You will have to answer truthfully, and whatever you answer will forever be lost to you. I know it is harsh, but you'll have to get through this. I know you are able to. Yes, the blue box sounds difficult, but the white box is by far the worst, even if it does not sound like it. The rule of the white box is simple. You must never open it, under any circumstance. It is, however, far from easy. You will be tempted and lured by the Seeker. The white box is the only box he has any influence over. And those are the rules. Phew, that was a lot to write down, but at least you are prepared for tonight. Light your candle, paint your boxes, and get ready, because tonight is going to be awesome. Yeah, I had a good laugh before throwing the red letter into the paper trash bin, as any sane person would. I would regret it later. I checked my security camera for the front porch, set myself a cup of coffee, sat down and began reading my newspaper. The kids in my neighbourhood sure are pranksters. Some bits of the letter played in my mind, and I decided to check the time. 10:58 AM. I rolled my eyes. Sure, I'll humour myself and wait for the clock to strike 11 AM. 10:59. As if anything would happen. What the? Don't forget. The words were written in shadows on my table, and I looked around to find what could have caused them. When I looked back, they were gone. I was way too into that story now, and my mind was playing tricks on me. I think I'll stop reading so many horror stories. I ate my toast and made myself another cup of coffee. It's Sunday, so I won't have to hurry with anything. I read the news on my phone, and when I finished my second coffee, I started to do the dishes. My dishwasher won't be arriving until at least tomorrow, so I'll just have to do it myself. While I was doing the dishes, I saw some weird cracks in the tiles above the kitchen counter. I looked closer and started noticing a pattern. Come play friend. Okay, now I was definitely creeped out. That did not have any logical explanation. I took the thin paper from the bin, but I still believed that it couldn't be true what the paper said. My friend apparently noticed my hesitation. I felt a stabbing pain in my arm, which lasted for almost a minute. I held my arm in pain, forgetting to even look what was causing it. I finally felt the pain die down to a dull burning. Then I felt something trickle down my arm and then drop onto the paper I was holding. I finally looked. My arm was bleeding. At least, that was the first thing I noticed. I then saw the markings. They looked like words. Wait, they were words. The rest were incoherent scribbles, like someone had been trying to write something but suddenly lost the ability to do so. It almost looked like a struggle, which fascinated me more than that there was something carved in my arm. Oh well, could have been the shock, I guess. Hey friend, have you decided to stop stalling and start playing? A jovial voice broke me out of my stupor. I looked around, but there was nobody there. What? I asked if you were done stalling. The voice sounded like it was right next to me, but I didn't see anyone. This was the final drop for me. Who the hell are you? Wait, better question. What the hell do you want? I like your words, my man, the voice quipped, but this is rather urgent. You have to sign the letter first. Just place a drop of your blood on it, and we can talk. And why should I trust a random voice in the sky? Well, if you want the Seeker to come get you, then I will gladly let him. The prospect of another voice to come join, one that could most likely cause me the same destruction this voice has done, did not sit well with me. So I got my arm and pressed it against the paper. The distorted words appeared in my blood at the bottom of the letter. Great, now that that's out of the way. I suddenly felt a rough hand on my shoulder, but the voice was still invisible. Much better, I heard him murmur. Now, like I said in my letter, he spoke in a louder voice, you must first go get a candle. I will start painting in the meantime. Wait, I called out as I heard the voice walk away. Wait, what exactly are you? You aren't human, that much is obvious. The invisible thing, whatever it was, had stopped walking, and I could feel its eyes on me. That boy is something I neither can nor want to answer. I can, however, tell you this. I felt him lean over to me. His breath was right in my face. You just entered a game with beings your eyes won't ever be able to comprehend. The trip to the store was short, and the only thing I got was the candle. I was tempted for a moment to get a white one, just to mess with the being, but I quickly threw away that thought. I already experienced what would happen if I didn't follow the rules, so I just did what I was told. What I saw when I got home, however, was not something I suspected. A floating paintbrush. It was doodling on some of the cardboard boxes, creating all sorts of weird symbols and scribbles. They almost looked like some sort of language. I placed my red candle on the kitchen table and sat down on a chair. What are you drawing? I decided to straight up ask. Glad you asked. See, these thingies here are mine. My pet in my house. And this here is... No, what is all the writing about? Oh, that. Just some phrases in my own language. Nothing to worry about. I could almost see its grin. He was obviously withholding some information from me, but I decided not to press. I just sat down in one of the chairs opposite the floating brush and started painting one of the boxes blue. At least it had been nice enough to set the different paints, brushes and boxes on my table, so I could start immediately. It was eerily silent while we painted, so I decided to try and make some conversation. So, do you play this game often? I straight up asked it. The doodling stopped for a moment, then continued onward. No, I normally don't get to play, it answered, a bit sullen. But this time is different. Now I have a buddy, and we will win for sure. I could feel its grin directed at me. A shiver went down my spine. Oh, well, That's great, I guess. I decided to try get some more answers from him. That Seeker guy, what is he like? Are there some ways to trick him, or stall him, or deceive him? The being burst out laughing. I thought you were never going to ask, it hiccuped. Then it turned serious once again. There are some ways to trick him. He can't stand the candle, for example. Keep it in between his position and yours, if you know the general area of where he is, and he will not be able to find you. On the other hand, he can track you if you have any salt on you, or have eaten it. So that's what the rule is for. He will also try to get you to break the rules. He will try to trick you in every way possible, so be prepared. If you break even one of the rules, you will be in grave danger. If you break Rule 13, he will win immediately, and your soul will be his. I continued painting while listening to him. Those rules are really important. One last question. I remembered the peculiar Rule 13. Why must I never open the white box once the game has started? What will be inside of it? I can't say what is inside of it, or we have already lost, but I can tell you that it is not worth opening it and unleashing him upon us. Just try to forget it, and you will be safe for the night. Great. Again, no straight answer. I knew better than to try peeking in it tonight. But damn, the temptation was so big. While I continued painting, I thought about what it had said. So the candle was like a barrier for the Seeker. That's good to know. That way, I'll be able to keep him from getting to me. But the invisible thing here at my table was withholding something from me. The salt. There's something not quite right about what he said. He seemed kind of nervous about it. Maybe the salt can be used against himself. It was evening before I even knew it. I ate a quick dinner, which didn't taste too good because of the lack of salt in it. After that, I placed the boxes in the rooms. He placed the uncoloured ones in the attic, basement, garden and storage room, and I placed the coloured ones in the bedroom, kitchen, living room and bathroom. While I placed my boxes in the assigned rooms, I also looked up what kind of being my playing buddy could be. But from what I could find, I think it's some kind of ghost, or at least something close to that. It doesn't fit the exact description, but in the limited time I had, I couldn't find anything else that fit his characteristics. I suddenly heard a hiss come from the hallway. I walked out the kitchen I was in and saw a couple of boxes floating in front of the living room. "What's wrong?" I asked. "That stupid flower over there. I hate primroses, so get that out of the house." "No, it was a present from my mother. I got it yesterday from her." "Do you want me to help you, or do you want to play alone?" it asked mockingly. "Fine," I sighed. "I'll set it on the front porch. Better?" I picked the vase up and walked to my front door, which I opened. I set the vase down in front of it and closed the door again. "Much better," it answered, and walked into the room. We prepared the rooms and garden, and then went to the living room. I sat down on the couch and watched some TV, while the being was doodling on some piece of paper. At 11:30 p.m, the being stopped doodling. "It's time," was all it said. I nodded, turned off the TV, and stood up. "Let's get this show on the road," I responded. I got my red candle and placed the box of matches in one of my pockets of my jeans after I lit the candle. I felt the being walk over to me and then stand next to me. It was at that moment that I realized I didn't even know its name, if it even had one. "Do you have a name?" I decided to ask bluntly. "Well, of course. It's a bit long, so I'll just give you the name my friends normally call me. Dolor." "Well, nice to meet you, Dolor," I said a bit mockingly. Dolor snorted, but didn't say anything else. We sat in silence for about 15 minutes before the candle suddenly lit up really bright, so bright I had to shield my eyes with my hands. I had been anxious of what was coming all day, but a sudden calm swept over me for a second, before the anxiety returned tenfold. My last spark of hope for all of this to be some kind of sick joke was extinguished. The room was dark again, and my eyes needed to adjust for a moment. Dolor spoke up. He starts as far away from us as possible, so he will be somewhere in the garden. But first, let's see what box has appeared here. Indeed, I almost forgot. We were in a room, so the box here was also switched. I walked to the table in front of the TV on which I'd placed the green box. A cardboard one had taken its place. Come on, open it, Dolor encouraged me. If you keep waiting, he will find us for sure. I looked at the weird symbols on it and shivered. Something about the box was off, and I could feel it radiating from it. Still, knowing every second whatever being was in my garden was getting closer, I opened the box. Inside were a die and a piece of paper. I held the paper close to my candle, but not too close, and started reading. Roll the dice and get your prize. If you roll a 1, you lose. Dolor will decide what you'll have to do. 2, still not good, but hey, no one is perfect. You will have to wait here for 5 minutes. 3, at least you're getting somewhere. You will have to wait 8 minutes. 4, wow, that's pretty good. You will have to wait 10 minutes now. 5, great, that's a really high number. You will get to pick what kind of box will be the next room you want to visit. 6, you win. Congrats. You can ask Dolor one question and he will have to answer honestly. It can't be about the white box though. Good luck to you and Dolor. May the best player win. Oh, a game where you play against me. How exciting, Dolor crowed. I was a bit confused. Why did I have to wait longer if I got a higher number? Other than that, the prizes got better every time I went up a number. There was something wrong here, however. I did not want to ask Dolor. He's been pretty suspicious from the beginning, so I don't think he'll give me a completely honest answer. I picked up the die and looked at it closely, but I couldn't see anything unusual about it. Still, I wanted to be sure the game wasn't rigged. Do you mind if I throw it a few times before we start? I would like to know if this thing isn't rigged. Sure, go ahead, he giggled. But remember, the more time you waste, the closer he can get. I'd keep that candle between you and the door if I were you. He giggled again and got seated on the couch. At least, there was an imprint on the couch, so I think he sat down there. I threw the die a few times, and it seemed to act normal. Okay, I'm ready to start the game, I called out to Dolor. Great, was all the indication I got. From what I heard, he didn't sit up any straighter or stood up and got over to the table. It almost seemed like he didn't care, or maybe even knew what was going to happen. I rolled the die a few times in my cupped hands, then threw it. It bounced on the table, rolled, and ended up with 5 dots at the top. A surprise sound came from Dolor, and I grinned. I had given the die a bit more of a spin than I did my previous throws, so most likely he'd been trying to influence the outcome. Well then, I guess I can pick the next box, I said casually. Dolor didn't make a sound. Let me see. You said the green box is the easiest? I think I'll pick that one. I heard him sigh quietly before saying in a cheerful voice, Good job, friend. Where do you want the box to be? Well, the kitchen is the closest room, so place it there. I heard a snap, and then, done. I could have chosen the cardboard box, but I knew I would also encounter at least 2 coloured ones. I definitely would not want to come across the blue one, and I don't have enough information about the white one to really want to encounter it. It sounds like something is really wrong with it, and I do not want to know what that is. Come on, hurry, let's go to the kitchen. Dolor was suddenly behind me and shoving me to the door in a hurried manner. What? Why are you suddenly in such a hurry? I asked. His hands burned against the exposed skin of my left arm where he grabbed my wrist. The Seeker and I are sorta linked. We can feel where each other is, at least the rough area. We can pinpoint the other's location to a 5-meter radius. Great, and you didn't tell me that earlier? Why exactly? It wasn't important. It sounded more like a question than an answer. But come on, we have to hurry. He's pretty close, most likely in the storage room. That was right at the end of the hallway, near the stairs. Damn. Is there no way to stop the link? I asked. There is one way to make it very difficult for him to find me. The candle has to be between him and me. But wait, I won't be able to sense him either if you do that. Too bad for you, I said, and walked towards the door with Dolor behind me. To the kitchen, quick. I'll follow close behind you. I kept the candle between me and the hallway. I heard him run in front of me while I kept the candle between our location and the Seeker's. I saw a dim light glow from the end of the hall, but then I was in the kitchen and the door slammed close. Place the candle in front of the door, that way he'll think we aren't here and will go away in a few minutes. I did as I was told and placed the candle in front of the door. The light shone on my arms and I saw the angry red mark on my left wrist. I decided not to say anything about it, but more and more about Dolor seemed to be very wrong. Then I turned around and saw the green box placed on the kitchen table. I swallowed and hoped that the question would be as harmless as the game of the previous box. I grabbed the piece of paper from the box and sat down next to my candle. Would you rather A. Have your colleague Sam get an incurable illness which will make him die a horrible, long and painful death, or B. Have your Aunt Lily lose her unborn child? It is your choice. Yeah, not so harmless after all. Aunt Lily is one of my favourite aunts and really sweet. I know she and my Uncle Philip have wanted a child for years. They were never able to have one before, but a few months ago she became pregnant. By some miracle, and they were overjoyed. It would crush her to lose the baby, even though her and my uncle's relationship was sometimes a bit rocky, with her screaming in his face and the yelling back at her. They deserved the baby and seem to have left the fighting behind now. On the other hand, Sam is one of the people I dislike the most, maybe even hate a bit. He's insufferable and will do and say anything to make himself look good and make others lose face. His behaviour is, however, by far not enough to make me want to have him die such a horrible death. He did some good things, like raising funds for charity and helping local small businesses. Take your time, I don't need an answer immediately, but remember, you have 10 minutes. I looked in Dolor's direction. And what if I don't choose? Then they will both happen. I don't have a shred of doubt that that would happen. He would definitely be able to do that. What should I do? In the end, my personal feelings won. I choose Sam to die. Snap. There, was that really all that difficult? Dolor asked mockingly. He was the bane of your existence. It's only natural you choose him. Still, such a choice is not up to me. So, where do we go next? You'll see, was all I said. I did not want him to know and possibly influence the game. I was starting to trust Dolor less and less. We were walking down the hallway. I was planning to go to the bedroom, but then we rounded the corner. A bright light shone down. I shielded my eyes and looked away, but then I heard Dolor scream in agony. I looked towards the direction his voice came from, and then I saw it. He was visible now. I saw the horns, I saw the tail, I saw the red skin. Then he grabbed my arm and dragged me into the basement and slammed the door behind us. We both sat there, breathing heavily, while my mind tried to process what to do. Dolor was invisible again and was clearly not focusing on me at the moment, so I schooled my expression into a confused one. Dolor did not need to know that I knew. What was that? I almost shouted. That, Dolor panted, was the Seeker. Man, that was way too close. Yeah, was all I said. I was shivering a bit, not because of our encounter with the Seeker, but because of Dolor's true form. Dolor thankfully thought it was because of the Seeker. Hey, we're safe here, so no worries. There's no need to be afraid of the big old Seeker here. Yeah, sure. Man, he was scary. I played along. That, he sure is, my friend. It's a good thing we could get to the basement in time. Here, place the candle on the door and we will look at the box. I did as I was told, then looked back at the box. It was the red one. Ooh, the red one! How exciting! Dolo crowed. He seemed to be enjoying himself way too much, and I was immediately on edge. And in the basement too. That's always a fun one. I could practically see Dolo bouncing in his place. Go on, open it. The dare of the basement, it read. The basement is the closest you'll get to my home. It also has the deepest connection. You'll have to make that connection even better. There's a bucket of red paint in this box, as well as a brush. The words you'll need to write are Dedo mi inferno. Good luck. What does that sentence mean? I asked, knowing that it couldn't be anything good. Nothing important, was all Dolo said. I knew I couldn't escape the task, so I began to write. The paint was a deep crimson colour and sparkled just a bit too bright to be paint. I wrote down the words, but made sure to leave one spelling mistake. Instead of Dedo, I wrote Deda. It looked almost the same, but Dolo still walked closer to me, and I felt him lean over my shoulder to look at the words more carefully. Then he walked away again, clearly a bit confused about something. Well, with that out of the way, let's go. He seemed a bit unsure, but he had made up his mind and decided we needed to get going. I let him step in front of me and the candle. He's somewhere outside. We can go to the storage room, and after that, upstairs. I stepped in front of him again, and we walked to the storage room. I saw something strange in the closet in the hallway. Dolo didn't seem to notice, so I swiftly took it from the closet and held it close to my candle, making it seem like I was staring at my candle. It was a wispy, glowing piece of paper. The title read, Rules to Escape the Box Game. As you've likely noticed by now, your friend, or Dolo as he likes to call himself, is not exactly human. I, the Seeker, am also not human. What you are participating in is a battle between heaven and hell, a battle for your very own soul. As you also have guessed by now, you are at the moment on hell's side. The demon is tricking you. If you try to escape with him now, you will die and he will take your soul. I have made you this set of rules so you can escape, but it's going to be difficult to get you out. Do as the rules say, and you should be able to come to me before your soul will be lost. Number 1. Dolo must never find out that you know the truth. He will try to take your soul, and I will most likely not make it in time to save you from that horrible fate. Number 2. The red candle will keep me away, while also making Dolo stronger. Do not set it near the door of the room you're in. Try to act as natural as possible and keep it away from the door. If you do not do this, then I won't be able to find you. Number 3. I will get you immediately once you open the door, but only if you could keep the candle away from the door the entire time you are in that room. The following rules will apply for you if you are not able to keep the candle away from the door. Number 1. There is one other way to escape. This, however, is much more difficult and dangerous. The most important thing is that Dolo does not find out that you know about the battle. He controls which boxes will appear, and he will do everything in his power to make the white box not appear. This is extremely difficult for him, so he will not do this if he can avoid it. But if he knows that you know, you will leave him no other choice. You will be stuck until you hand over your soul to him. Number 2. The white box can only appear in certain rooms and will appear at least once during the game. The rooms in which it can appear are the bedroom, bathroom and the attic. Nowhere else. So try to get to these rooms as fast as possible. Every box you have to complete which isn't the white box is one too many. If you already completed all the coloured boxes, including the white one, then I am sorry, but there is nothing I can do for you anymore. Number 3. This step is the most difficult. When you are in a room with a white box, you will have to open it. This may seem simple, but it is the hardest rule. Dolo will try to stop you as soon as he knows what you are trying to do. He cannot kill you, nor will he be able to possess you, but only if you haven't completed the red box's task successfully. If you have, just pray it'll be a swift death. Number 4. If you have not completed the red box, Dolor will not be able to kill you, but he'll still be able to harm you. You've most likely seen him do something to your house, or even yourself, before you agree to start the game. He will harm you again and use many illusions to trick you, but he cannot make you blind to the box. Just remember, whatever you have to go through to open the box is better than not opening it. If you go against Dolor's rules, he will try to kill you or make you surrender your soul. If you go against any other rule than the white box rule, he can kill you. Good luck. Great. I only have to choose between going to heaven or going to hell. Easy choice, right? Except, I don't want to die. I have a life here, with amazing friends, a fine job and a beautiful girlfriend. So why would I give all of this up? There has to be a way for me to survive, right? As I thought about the very few possibilities I had, I walked into the storage room with Dolor. He shut the door behind me before I could come up with a plan to go to the upper floor rooms first. Thankfully, there was a cardboard box in this room. I think Dolor thought it to be suspicious to have 3 coloured boxes, one after the other, in the rooms. "Ah, a cardboard box," he exclaimed. Now that I knew about his secret, I could finally hear the tiny hint of a mocking tone in his voice. "Well then, let's see what's inside," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. I don't want to be stuck in here any longer with that seeker guy following us. I had to keep up the facade. He fell for it completely. Yeah, he's creepy, man. Go on, open the box. I walked up to it, keeping the candle in my hand, and looked at it. I saw some drawings of food and gravestones on it. Great, I knew where this was going. Don't forget, place the candle in the front door, otherwise the seeker will find us. Damn. I placed the candle at the door and took the box there too. I opened the box and saw a piece of paper at the top. I grabbed that first and started reading. Welcome to Russian roulette, but Dolor style. Here are 6 different foods, some perfectly safe and some poisoned with a deadly poison which you can't smell, taste or see. Now, I know Russian roulette only has 1 bullet in it, but something like that would make this game way too easy. Don't worry, I didn't make it that hard. I ain't that cruel, but I did make it a bit more difficult. Half the foods are poisoned. You get to choose 1 food and have to eat it whole. Have fun. There were indeed 6 foods in the box. An apple, a pear, a peach, an orange, a banana, and last, a couple of strawberries, all in the same plastic box. Strawberries are my favourite food, but I knew Dolor would most likely know that and poison them. The banana also stood out, since the other foods are round, so I didn't choose that one either. If I was corrected, then there would only be 1 last poisoned food. Then I remembered. The forbidden fruit in the Bible was an apple, so most likely that one was also poisoned. I hesitated a bit, but decided to go for the orange. I'll pick the orange, I said. Suit yourself, Dolor answered indifferently. I picked up the orange and started to eat it. After I ate it whole, Dolor clapped. Well done. At least he didn't pick any of the poison foods, so we can continue playing, he said cheerfully, but I could hear the disappointment. I don't think killing me was the only thing the poison was supposed to do. I let Dolor scout for the seeker again, who he found to be in the garden, and we went upstairs. My heart started to beat faster as we reached the top of the stairs. Let's go to the bathroom first, I decided. Okay, great, but hurry up. The seeker is coming. We hurried inside and shut the door. I placed the candle in front of it, knowing that if I didn't, Dolor will start to suspect me. Then I turned around. There was the blue box. The box stood on the sink, which made it all the more creepy. My reflection looked at me in the mirror above the sink. The candle in the background made me appear as more of a shadow, a blank space. I didn't see one shadow, however. I saw two. The other shadow certainly looked humanoid, but there were some big differences with mine. I immediately knew it to be Dolor's. "Yes, I always loved that blue box," the shadow spoke. "It's so interesting." "I'd hoped we wouldn't encounter it," I mumbled. I'd hoped that Dolor would have chosen the white box and I could have finished the game then and there. But no, he had to do the blue box first. He really thought I had no clue about the secret of the white box and no way of getting to know it. "Come on, open it. I want to see what's inside," Dolor whined. "Okay, stop whining." I looked at the box and gulped. I remembered the rule. I will lose something. I opened the box. A little piece of paper sat neatly folded on the bottom with a red ribbon tied around it. I untied the ribbon and unfolded the paper. You know the rules, so here is your question. What is the one thing you would never want to lose? I stared at the paper, dumbfounded. Wait, what does it mean by that? "It could be anything," Dolor sang. "An object you can't live without. Maybe the ring your wife gave you on a dying bed, or something not material. A quality you are proud of that you couldn't bear to lose. Kindness, supportiveness, whatever you want." I knew the answer to that question. I also knew that, if I didn't answer it correctly, then I would lose the game. I had to think of a way out of it. The one thing I would not want to lose. "Tick-tock, your time is starting to run out," Dolor grinned. "If you don't answer in time, you will lose." The air started to grow colder with those words. I frantically racked my brain for a solution, but couldn't find any. I started panicking further, which, of course, didn't help me get my answer. 10, 9, 8, Dolor droned. "My humanity," I finally sobbed. "I couldn't bear to live without my humanity." There, that wasn't so difficult, right? I started to feel a strange sensation all over me. Then the panic started to ebb away. The hate started to fade. The sadness disappeared. In its place was a strange nothingness, a void. It didn't feel wrong or uncomfortable. It didn't feel comfortable either. "Humanity," Dolor said, "as you thought of it, is the ability to feel and decide what's right and wrong. Morals, feelings, those define humans from animals. That's what you, like many people, thought." Right? Wrong? Why can't I remember the definition of those words? "But there is so much more potential," Dolor went on. "Humans are smart and wicked. Take away the morals, and they are finally complete." I saw Dolor's shadow in the mirror, approaching me from behind. He laid his clawed hands on my shoulders. "Rationality, making decisions without being biased by emotions. No human can truly reach this because they do not have emotions. They are biased. They make decisions to ensure the survival of their group, of their loved ones. Love and emotion." I nodded. What he's saying sounds true, I thought. You will not have this problem. You will be free. I felt nothing. I simply nodded. "I have a question for you. Do you know of the Seeker's rules?" I just nodded again. It was no use lying. He would know and would kill me. Dolor's form became darker and returned to how it looked before. "Do you agree with them?" he then asked, his voice sounding intrigued. "No, I do not," was my honest answer. I elaborated. "It does not seem fit for me to die. Therefore, I do not agree with the Seeker's rules." "Do you think he's in his right, though?" "No, I do not. But he is an angel, as you most certainly know now." "I do, however, think he does not possess the right to take my life." Dolor fell silent for a moment. Then he spoke up again. You know, he's the reason you're in this game. When a person is supposed to die, there are a few ways to judge them. The angels get to choose, and he chose this as your trial. I simply nodded again. That would make sense. Would you want revenge? Make him pay for his choice. Revenge. Sounded nice. I felt something well up. A need for blood of the destroyer of my life. Revenge, I said with a wicked grin. Revenge does sound great. I knew I was biased now, but this kind of bias was good. That's what Dolor said. That's how it feels. The nothingness is good, but this is great. We made our plan. The Seeker has a weakness. He can't stand demon blood. As you know, that won't be difficult to get, but the hard part is getting close to the Seeker without raising suspicion. He knows I wouldn't let you go without intentions bad for him, and he knows I would know if you tricked me and would also not let you go then. So there is no way to get him to come to us without me getting taken by him? I asked. There is a way you can get close to him. You remember the white box? I nodded. You'll have to open it. What? I asked. The nothingness returned. Is Dolor really this stupid? You do know I'll still be taken then, right? I asked him sarcastically. Not if everything goes according to plan, Dolor answered. Seeing that I didn't understand, he started explaining. The only safe way for him to come is if you open the box. He will think that you followed his instructions, thus believing you to be on his side. If you throw some of the demon blood on him at the exact moment he arrives, then he will have no way of defending. You'd win. Needless to say, we set that plan into action. We went to my bedroom, and I even kept the candle from the door. Then I waited a few minutes before I opened the box. The effect was immediate. The candle flickered, while the box started to glow a starry white. Then the Seeker started to slowly rise from the box. He was big, way too big to fit through the box, but he did. I stared for a moment, dumbfounded to finally see him, but then Dolor screamed and my thoughts went back to reality. I grabbed the little bottle of Dolor's blood I had extracted and threw it all over the Seeker. With a loud screech, he started to sink back into the box. I just stood next to the box, watching him scream in agony. That's for getting me into this mess. So, I guess that means I'm going to hell, right? I turned towards Dolor, directing my questioning gaze towards him. I was a bit surprised when he started laughing. No, man, I told you I had a way to get you out of this. The blue box was part of that. Having you lose your morals was the only way to make sure you would be able to do the next part. The next part? Someone can be introduced to the game in two ways. As I said in my letter, anyone who knows of the game becomes part of the box game. I had to introduce you via my letter. That's how you got to know about it. But humans can spread the news too. If you tell someone about it and its rules, that person becomes part of the game. If someone learns about it, they become part of the game. I want to make a deal with you. What is it? As you know, the losers of the game belong to hell, to me. The more souls I have, the stronger I become. I need souls, and to get them, they have to lose the game. That's why I kept you around. While you're not in hell right now, I need someone to collect souls to play. For every soul you tell about the game, doesn't matter how, via a conversation, an article, or a post, you get to live another year. Do we have a deal? As you can see, I've made my choice. I will live. Will you, though? Let's find out tonight, in your box game. How many doors did you open today? What about in the last week, month, or year? What about your entire lifetime? The answer to that is probably many. Yet, if you're listening to this now, probably not enough of them. So, consider yourself lucky. Or luckier than me, at any rate. My ordeal started about 5 months ago. It was a usual day. Wake up, go to work, be bored out of my mind. Only, it was a night. I worked the night shift at a small pawn shop, and the night passed at a glacial pace. That's usually good news, as I'd browsed the internet on my phone. But my charger did that thing when you sleep, and it just bloody disconnects, leaving you with no battery to speak of. And me being me, I didn't notice until I got to work. Great. So I was alone and bored out of my mind for some 10 hours, but the night eventually passed. A co-worker came in as morning broke, so I left. On my way to the car, I stopped at a local mart and grabbed a couple of sandwiches and a water bottle. I was too lazy to make myself something to eat when I get home, so I figured I'd just wolf down the sandwiches and go to sleep. The commute was only 10 minutes long, and it passed in a blur as I couldn't be bothered to pay attention to anything. My mind had melted under the boredom, to the point that I couldn't wait to get home and plug my phone in to watch some YouTube. I pulled up in my driveway and went for the entrance, fumbling for my keys. When I finally found them, I opened the door and entered, still not paying attention to my surroundings. Had I been a little less negligent, had I looked inside before going in, my life would have been so different today. But I didn't. The door clicked shut behind me, and I made my way to the kitchen through the corridor. I was also searching through my backpack for one of the sandwiches. I finally noticed something was off when I reached for the place where the table should have been, but I didn't bump into it. There was supposed to be a chair here for me to sit down and eat my meal, but there was nothing. I looked up frantically and noticed the table was gone entirely, along with all of the furniture in my kitchen. The drawers, the fridge, even the damn sink. Not a trace of them remained. I was dumbfounded, to say the least. Did someone break in and steal everything while I was gone? But why? How? On a closer inspection, though, I realized it hadn't been thieves because the sink's drain was gone, replaced by a smooth wall instead. No one could have done this in the 10 hours I was at work, and even if they could have, I couldn't fathom a reason for them to. Looking up, I saw the light bulb was gone as well. At that point, I started freaking out badly, because light still emanated from where I used to be. I grabbed my backpack and ran to the front door, hastily opening it. The street was gone. In its place, only another empty room. I let out a yelp of surprise mixed with fear as I froze in the doorway. What the hell was going on? Remembering my phone, I pulled it out and prayed that it still had some battery, but I was out of luck. The thing was dead. I took a few minutes to calm down and decide what to do. My breath smoothed out after a while, and I felt confident enough not to have a panic attack, so I closed my eyes and opened the door again. Still a room instead of the street. Crap. I explored the rest of the house, hoping to find something that would have helped me understand, but every room was the same story. All the furniture was gone. The walls were uncharacteristically smooth and featureless, and the light bulbs were nowhere to be seen, even though there was plenty of light to go around. I had hoped against all odds that I'd find my landline phone in the living room, but I think you can guess how well that went. I don't know how much time I spent curled up on the floor of the living room, just crying. And I don't know how much time I spent opening and closing the front door, hoping it would finally reveal the street to me. Many hours at any rate, until I finally gave up and decided to take a leap of faith. I entered the room the front door led to, closed it behind me, and opened the door again. Now my corridor was gone, its place taken by a small room with a singular door on the other side. If someone would have been there with me, They could have pointed out the exact moment my soul shattered by the pop it made. But no one was there. I was all alone and lost in a twilight zone of empty rooms. I sat down, pulled my backpack in my lap, and took a sip of water. I didn't feel hungry yet, so I decided not to touch the sandwiches. With only 2 of them and a litre of water, I had to make them last. My mind went into survival mode, and I didn't know how long I'd be here or how to get out. I eventually decided to take a nap, as I was still tired from the night shift I'd been through. I decided I'd have a better chance at figuring things out if I was rested. Sleep came swiftly, but it was fitful and as bland as the room I was in. I didn't dream at all, and I constantly woke up feeling paranoid, like someone or something was watching me. The 5th time that happened, I jumped to my feet. The room was dark now. I couldn't even see my hand in front of my face. After I was done dropping bricks, I thought I'd died and was now in some sort of hell. But I walked around slowly and still found the walls of the room in about the places I expected. It clicked in my head. It was night time. This place, wherever or whatever it was, kept track of the time outside. I huddled myself in one of the corners and waited for the light to return. That took a few hours, but with nothing to draw my attention and excite my senses, it felt like a small eternity. There was only me, the darkness, the sounds of my occasional breath, and the pulse of my heart pounding in my ears. I thought I'd go crazy, that I'd start to hallucinate any moment now. But then I noticed a small inkling of light emanating from the ceiling. Dawn was coming. The light slowly grew in intensity, mirroring the pace of a sunrise, but I didn't wait any longer. The moment I could see even past the vaguest of shapes, I got up and on the move. Despite the poor quality of my sleep, I felt rested and refreshed, so I started exploring. Door after door, room after room, all I found was more of the same. The walls were different colours and the shapes of the rooms varied to mirror their purpose. A small closet, a garage, a bathroom, a corridor once in a while. But other than that, they were all the same. For a split second, I felt like I was in a video game and I'd entered an area that I wasn't supposed to. A building the devs didn't flesh out because no one was meant to enter it. Only this was reality. At one point, I got an idea. I kept finding windows, which, although they didn't show anything on the other side and were flush with the walls, I thought maybe would lead somewhere. So I threw my water bottle against one of them, hoping to shatter it, but it bounced right off and rolled at my feet. The next few days were spent going from room to room, only stopping at night when I couldn't see a damn thing. But I made a few interesting discoveries, if you want to call them that, about how this place and my body worked now. Closing a door randomized the room on the other side, so you could walk in a circle without going in the same room twice. As soon as the door left your direct line of sight, even if you left it open, it would close on its own. This one I figured out after I had the bright idea of not closing any doors behind me, hoping I'd manage to figure out how big the place was. I didn't need sleep, or at least I didn't need it as often as I normally would. Despite a few days having passed at that point, I didn't feel tired, and I only slept through the first night I spent there. Same went for food and water. I didn't feel hungry or thirsty, even though I still had both sandwiches and the water bottle was missing only the few sips I took on the first day. That was either a curse or a blessing, depending on how you chose to look at it. It would give me more time to find a way out, but it had the potential of prolonging my suffering immensely if I didn't. I decided to take it as a blessing for the time being and kept going. Room after room, day in and day out. I think I opened more doors in that time than I would have in my entire life otherwise. But after roughly a week, I finally found something that wasn't just another bland wall. Though, I wished I hadn't. The first thing that hit me as I entered another room was the gut-wrenching smell. It was stagnant and putrid, to the point that it made me retch and made my eyes water. I slowly looked up and found red trails adorning the floor. They had a radial pattern that led back to a common source and looked as if they flowed at one point or another. As my eyes followed them, slow and uncertain, my gaze came upon something in the corner. It was a dry husk, with its back against the wall and its hands beside its body. The trails led to its wrists, and I could see bone beneath the mummified skin. Words were strewn on the wall behind it, in the same red colour as the trails on the floor. I backed up slowly as the realization hit me like a truck. This person, whoever he or she might have been, was like me at some point. Someone stuck in here that couldn't take it anymore and decided to end it all. That was their only way out, their only release, and I feared more and more each day that it would eventually be my only option as well. For hours, I fought back the urge to leave the room and shut the door behind me. The reality of what I was facing sunk deeper and deeper into my soul, bringing with it despair and a feeling of complete helplessness. Many slaps later, I managed to snap myself out of it and approach the corpse to inspect it. I thought that maybe they'd have something useful on them, though what exactly that would have been, I had no idea. Certainly no food or water, else they might not have taken their own life, and certainly not a map that led outside, or else I'd not have found them here like this. I fashioned a mask to cover my mouth and nose out of my t-shirt and walked over to it slowly. The words behind it came into view as I got closer, and I could read them when I was a few steps away. Beware the dark. Don't follow the footsteps. The eyes. Oh God, the eyes. Make it stop. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but that was the gist of it. Short sentences with an ominous feeling to them. They certainly did a good job of making me feel like I drowned in dread. I tried to puzzle them together and draw some meaning from them, but I couldn't. What eyes? What footsteps? I'd been here for more than a week now, but besides the sounds I made myself, I didn't hear anything. I was still terrified reading it though. I kneeled down next to the corpse and started pulling on its clothes in search of pockets. It was dressed pretty blandly, jeans and a t-shirt, so I'd not found much. One of the front pockets of the jeans revealed a phone with no battery, and the back pocket revealed a wallet. There was a bit of cash in it, a few bills and coins, but I decided not to even count it, let alone take it. But I found an ID and a driver's license and took those. I figured that if I ever get out, the least I could do was turn these in and let their relatives know of their fate. His name was Brandon, an average-looking 25-year-old guy with dirty blonde hair and sparkling blue eyes. He didn't deserve his fate, and I didn't either. I found nothing else on him, so I decided to move on. Staying put wouldn't do me any good, and after finding Brandon's corpse, I felt a renewed sense of urgency. The next few days followed the same pattern as before, stopping only at nightfall. Before, I moved as long as I could see, but with Brandon's warning to beware the dark, I began stopping the moment the light started to fade. I was itching to move, to keep my mind occupied so it wouldn't collapse in on me, but I was afraid. I didn't need to see any monsters on top of all I'd been through. As the second week came and passed, I was certain I'd travelled for dozens of miles now, and more or less in a straight line too. I'd grown properly hungry in the meantime, so I ate one of the sandwiches and held on to the other one until I'd literally be starving. I was also down to half a bottle of water, but if my body kept it up at the same rate, these meager supplies would have lasted me a month or two. That was unless I'd have found her. As I entered another room, I saw someone huddled in a corner. Thinking it was a corpse, I approached it slowly, my nerves on their ends. It looked shriveled and malnourished, but I couldn't tell if it had been dead for long now. Decomposition was probably affected the same way as my hunger and my thirst, which is why my sandwich went stale but was still edible. But then she opened her eyes, looked at me with horror, and started to scream. I covered my ears to shield them from the loud screech, and it took everything I had in me not to bolt it out of the door. She screamed for a solid 30 seconds before she stopped to gasp for air, but I could see she was ready to do it again. "Stop that," I yelled. "I won't hurt you." She opened her eyes, and they were wide with surprise. A look of disbelief, and then of relief washed over her features, and she huddled down tighter. "Help me, please. Oh God, if you're a real human, help me." I rushed over to her and kneeled down. She looked bad, but knowing she was still alive in her condition made it so much worse. Her face was scrawny, her skin pulled taut over her bones. Her clothes looked a few sizes too big, hanging loosely on a frame. Her hair was disheveled, dirty, and bunches of it had fallen off to reveal her bare scalp. "What happened to you?" I asked, although I probably knew the answer. "Do you have anything to eat, or some water?" she asked. I considered for a moment to lie and tell her no, but I couldn't have lived with myself if I did that. However long I still had to live anyway. I opened my backpack and offered her the sandwich. She wolfed it down in a few seconds and then licked the plastic wrap clean. "Thank you so much," she said after she was done. "I haven't eaten in months." I gave her the water bottle too and told her to drink it slowly. I was no expert in malnutrition and starvation, but I knew that if the stomach is empty for a long time, it's not a good idea to stuff it all of a sudden. She, of course, didn't listen to me and drank the water in a few gulps. I couldn't really blame her though. I can't even imagine what it feels like to not eat or drink for months. We stood in silence for a while, as I allowed her to regain some composure. She eventually opened her mouth and started to talk, and to this day, I still regret hearing her words. "Have you seen it yet?" she asked. "See what?" I asked back. "So you didn't travel through the dark then?" she continued. "No, I haven't," I answered. "I can't see anything, so when night comes, I stay put." "Good," she said. "You didn't answer me though." "See what?" I asked again. I tried to get more out of her, but my attempts were met with failure. She didn't evade my questions. She outright shot them down and told me it was for my own good. Seeing that I didn't relent, however, she eventually told me something. "Listen, you really are better off not knowing. Believe me, just don't travel through the dark, and you will be safe." "Fine," I said, accepting defeat. The terror in her voice was not hidden at all. It was laid thick on every word she spoke, so I didn't pester her further. Still, her questions and cryptic words felt eerily familiar. Brandon's words, written in blood, came to mind. "Beware the dark." I stayed by her side as the day passed and night settled, even though I was itching to get on the move again. I'd not seen another human or spoke to anyone in over 2 weeks, and although I thought I'd never miss it, that changed. I was starved for conversation, for interaction, and most importantly, for information. Her name was Vanessa. She was 25 years old and had been living a few towns over from me. One day, 3 months before I found her, she went to the bathroom in her own apartment. Preoccupied with her phone, she didn't check on the room she entered. Only when the door was shut behind her and she was cut off from the world outside did she notice something was up. By then, it was too late, and she'd been trapped in here ever since. Her story sent chills down my spine, as it was very similar to mine. In a moment of distraction, she walked through a door she'd opened countless times before, only for it to lead her here. The gears in my head started spinning as I began to theorize the how and why. I knew these rooms were copies of real ones. That much was evident from day one, seeing as I'd entered my own house and thought someone had stolen all of my furniture, and I knew they were randomized upon closing the doors. But where was this place? Outside of our reality? Did we enter it because we weren't paying attention? Or was it something like quantum mechanics, where the contents of the room weren't decided until they were observed? That I didn't know. It could have been any one of them, a combination of them, or something else entirely. Anyway, after me and Vanessa talked some more, she fell asleep. She was obviously weak, so I didn't wake her. I stood by her side as the light slowly dimmed, hoping she'd get enough strength back the next day to walk. I myself couldn't sleep. In fact, ever since I'd gotten here, I only slept that one time through the first night. The rest of them I spent awake, pondering my predicament and my life thus far. Tonight, I was glad to have someone next to me, even though all I could hear was her steady breathing. I wasn't alone anymore. About halfway through the night, I got up and paced around through the room for a bit to stretch my legs. I do this every night to stop my muscles from going stiff, but I never left the rooms I was in. At one point I stopped, after maybe 10 minutes of walking in circles. I listened for Vanessa so I could return next to her, and it didn't take me long to pick up on her breathing. But before I could take a single step towards her, I heard footsteps. I stood as still as I could, listening, hoping my mind was only playing tricks on me. But it wasn't. Although they were faint and sounded like they came from far away, I could clearly make out every single step. They were slow, with a few seconds between them, but they followed a steady rhythm. I turned to face the direction they seemed to come from and took a few steps of my own, slow and careful not to make a sound. I inched forward until my outstretched hand met the wood of the door. I leaned against it, pressing my ear in the wood, and heard the footsteps clearer. I hoped it would be another person. I hoped Vanessa and I would get another companion to help us out. But the more I listened, the more that hope was eroded away, until it was shattered entirely. The steps were too heavy for a normal human, too drawn out, and besides that, the room they seemed to come from wasn't decided yet. For all intents and purposes, I shouldn't have been able to hear them. The moment that realization hit me, Brandon's warnings and Vanessa's questions suddenly made sense. A deep sense of dread and fear took over me, and I made my way next to Vanessa without even taking a single breath. The night passed one heartbeat at a time, one footstep at a time, because they never went away, not until light returned in full. At that point, I woke Vanessa up. She came to her senses slowly and noticed the change in my demeanor. "Did you see it?" was the first thing she asked me. "No," I answered. "Did you hear the footsteps then?" she continued with the questioning. "Yes," I admitted, "but I didn't follow them." "We should be safe then," she said after a long pause. Vanessa tried to get up on her own, but she couldn't. She was still too weak, and we both doubted a sandwich and a bit of water would change that. I helped her to her feet and threw one of her arms around my shoulders, basically dragging her along. "You don't have to," she said as we walked towards the door opposite of the footsteps I heard during the night. "I'm not going by myself," I cut her short. "If I spend another night awake by myself, I'll lose it." She didn't say anything else. Having been alone for the past months, she probably understood me. We spent the next day in a straight line, door after door, hoping one of them would lead us outside. It hadn't, of course, and by nightfall we stopped once again. I sat Vanessa down in a corner and lay next to her. She lifted her right pant leg to reveal her shin, and I saw it was full of straight cuts in various angles of healing. I didn't know what to make of them, but they looked suspiciously like tally marks. With the nail of her thumb, she cut another line into her skin. She winced a bit, but didn't let out a sound. Seeing my confusion, she started explaining. "I'm counting the days I've been here," she said. "On your skin?" I asked, unnerved by it. "I've got nothing else," she said. We talked a bit more, mostly about our lives. She'd finished high school, but didn't pursue higher education. That left her working in a restaurant as a waitress to make a living. There, she met a man that would soon become a boyfriend, and then fiancé. He was the son of the owner, but from what Vanessa told me, he worked with him whenever he was needed. He sounded like a swell guy, to be honest. Anyway, the two of them moved into an apartment by themselves a year prior, and they'd been happy together. Vanessa said she could already see the rest of her life with him. Until, well, this happened to her. I told her I was in a similar position to hers, working a dead-end job in order to scrape by. Only I'd wasted years of my life going to college, getting a degree that never led me anywhere. I still lived with my parents in our small suburban home, hoping to find someone to share my days with and maybe start a family. "You can guess how well that went," I said, trying to pass it off as a joke. Vanessa managed to giggle, but could tell she didn't really taste my joke. I don't blame her, but I always found humour alleviates bad situations for me. We kept talking until the lights vanished almost completely, and we'd have done it even after that, probably all through the night. But something we heard stopped us. The footsteps. The goddamn footsteps. They returned as the last rays were gone, seemingly closer than last night. Listening in anticipation for what must have been hours, we huddled closer together, bunching into one another for a fleeting sense of safety. The night eventually passed, and we were both still alive by the end of it. Scared out of our minds, but alive. We spent about 2 more months travelling together, passing the days with small talk, and the nights fearing for our lives. The footsteps got closer some nights, but if we kept quiet, they wouldn't approach us. We both got weaker by the day, withering away to hunger and thirst, but Vanessa was much worse off than me. I didn't think someone could be that thin and still alive, and I think only a will to survive and see through this kept her alive at that point. We'd made very little progress for a few days, and I guess we both knew that she didn't have long left, but I refused to acknowledge it. One evening, as we stopped for the day, she was too weak to even talk with me. She went straight to sleep, which worried me, since I didn't need sleep once since I'd met her. When morning